primarily to discuss an important and very recent arrest and charging of a man by the name of Hakeem Bryant. Mr. Bryant, I understand to be about 51 years old, and all the evidence points to his being responsible for firing 9 shots in a busy, occupied SEPTA bus in the direction of several people, probably primarily aiming at 3 juveniles. This shooting actually caused physical injury to 4 people, the 3 juveniles and a woman in her 30s. But it was absolutely terrifying for everyone on the bus. I have seen the video of this incident, which we will not be playing today, although it is evidence and it will be played during the preliminary hearing, during the trial. And let's just say it's pretty shocking. We will get into that in a little bit more detail in a moment. One of the top priorities of the DA's office continues to be ensuring the safety of residents in Philadelphia and offering compassionate, effective support for survivors, co-survivors, witnesses of violent crime. Today, we will be announcing a whole series of charges against defendant Hakeem Bryant for his role in this vicious, horrific shooting, which occurred on a SEPTA bus at 33rd and Girard in the Brewerytown section this past weekend. I must say that the investigation that was done here is remarkable and has been very effective and swift. Obviously, we all should condemn this horrific violence. It not only affected everyone on the bus, it's the kind of thing that makes people pause before they leave their home or before they travel somewhere, and we do not want that in any way at any time. Think about the kind of folks who ride the bus, ride the subway all the time. They include our neighbors, they include our family members, they include senior citizens, young people, a lot of hard-working people who are going from one job to another and are going to work 2 8-hour shifts in a day just to make ends meet. It includes all kinds of people trying to do all kinds of things. They didn't get on there to get shot at. So I want you to imagine the trauma and the fear of being in an enclosed environment when out of nowhere and for no reason whatsoever, one shot after another is fired in your direction. When you do see the video, you will see people ducking down. There's no sound on the video I saw. You'll see people ducking down behind the seats. You'll see people who almost look like they're trying to climb through the glass that encloses them in this space. They are in a state of complete panic. Obviously, we will do everything we can to prosecute this case with determination, with vigor, while seeking justice for every victim impacted in this case by this awful crime and what absolutely could have been a deadly shooting. It is remarkable that no one was killed in this incident. It is remarkable that there does not appear to be a life-threatening injury, although there were some very severe injuries. Anybody thinking about picking up a gun for whatever reason, pulling the trigger, please understand what this defendant now understands, which is that you're going to find out. In collaboration with our partners, we will do all that we can to catch you, to make sure we have a solid case, and to prosecute you. Council member, good to see you. I want to ensure every victim, witness, and individual impacted by the shooting, including all employees of SEPTA, this bus driver, that our victim services unit is available to support you through the criminal justice and prosecutorial process, help you on your journey of healing from the trauma, and that there is no more important case to us than a case like this. All of our cases are important, but there's no more important case than this. We are joined today by Councilmember Curtis Jones Jr. of the 4th District, who is only here a minute late because he was handling another important matter at City Hall. We have Sergeant Ramon Rosado, that's R-A-M-O-N, last name R-O-S-A-D-O, who's with the Shooting Investigation Group and has played a primary role in this important investigation. ADA Bill Fritzie, Chief of our Gun Violence Task Force. In spirit, we have with us ADA Danielle Berkavage, who is the Chief of our Intelligence Unit, but is unable to be here right now. ADA Kelsey Gamaro. Is that Kelsey Jamaro?
Jamaro.
Sorry. Kelsey Jamaro, my bad, which is spelled K-E-L-S-E-Y. Last name is G-I-M-A-R-O. Is here from the DAO's Gun Violence Task Force. She will be taking a primary role in the prosecution of this case. And we have Mariel Dela Cruz, who is the director of the DAO's Victim Services Unit. I would like to personally thank several of our law enforcement partners who work with the Shooting Investigation Group, of which Sergeant Rosado is a member in the police department. And those partners include Jim Kearney, Lieutenant Kenneth Flaville, Sergeant Rosado, who's here, and the detectives assigned to this investigation for a very detailed, technologically astute investigation with regard to the shooting that we are discussing today. The PPD Shooting Investigation Group continues to do excellent work. It was a good idea when it was started, and it has proven itself since then. Specialization of detectives in shootings of all type, rather than having detectives from throughout the city handling all kinds of different matters, has turned out to be very successful in a way that is quite similar to the success that the DA's office has enjoyed in uniting shooting prosecutions with homicide prosecutions and getting even better results that way. Specialization has its place. But anyway, they continue to lead our city in solving cases and putting together really strong cases that move expeditiously through the court system. And we hope that through this kind of excellent enforcement work, that the city will become even safer in the months and years ahead. I want to thank each of the detectives and their supervisors for a job extremely well done. It is my pleasure at this time to introduce two speakers, and then if the council member cares to say a few words, I will invite him as well. The first speaker is ADA Bill Fritzie, who will give an overview of the work of the Gun Violence Task Force. The second speaker will be ADA Kelsey Jamaro, who will discuss the investigation and charges against the defendant, and then I'll check in with the council member to see if he wishes to say a few words.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. The task force is, as I've said multiple times, a joint effort, a joint group of individuals between the Office of Attorney General, the District Attorney's Office, and the Philadelphia Police Department. Many times we come to these press conferences and we talk about the work that we've done with our Attorney General's agents. But as important, or more importantly in this case, we also have a very strong relationship with the police department. And in fact, the Shooting Investigation Group is one of our other partners with the task force. What that allows us to do as prosecutors is when these arrests are trying to come across the line, when we're collecting that evidence, our prosecutors within the task force can work with the detectives as they're bringing those cases along. And what that allows us to eventually do is have stronger prosecutions at the end of the day. And this case was excellently investigated by our SIG detectives. And then our prosecutors were able to work with them before the charges came through to make sure that we can alleviate any of the concerns that can happen at trial ahead of time. So this will be a solid prosecution. We know that the summer months are coming. The task force knows that the summer months are coming. We'll continue to work with our partners. We'll continue to work with SEPTA and others when we see these types of cases arise. There will be no intervention for this defendant. He's got a litany of charges that you're going to hear about. The only intervention he's going to have is deciding how much time he's going to spend in state custody for what he's done. If you want to pick up a gun and you don't have the mental faculties to stop fighting with juveniles on a bus, then maybe you shouldn't have the gun to begin with. Stay out of our public spaces, stay off of our SEPTA transit, stay in your home, and don't have the gun to begin with. At this time, I'm going to call up ADA Kelsey Jamaro. She's going to give you information specific to this case.
Good morning. As you guys heard, my name is Kelsey Jamaro. I am a member of the Gun Violence Task Force, and I am specially assigned to this case. I would first like to thank the SEPTA police, the brave officers in the 22nd District who responded, and the detectives in the shooting investigation group who investigated this matter. I would like to specifically thank Detective Allen for her tireless work on getting this case solved. Her swift and thorough investigation led to the identification and arrest of the defendant, and her dedication is what allows us to now move forward to seeking justice for these victims. On Saturday, May 10th of 2025 at 6:41 p.m., Philadelphia police were dispatched to 33rd and Girard for a report of a black male shooting a firearm into a SEPTA bus. Upon arrival, they found 4 victims suffering from gunshot wounds. Detectives in this case utilized digital evidence, surveillance footage, and social media throughout their investigation, which shows us a video of the incident. And we can actually see the moment that the defendant opens fire into a bus full of people, normal people, kids, people on their way to work, everyone just trying to go about their day and utilize SEPTA as they should be allowed to do. However, after a short verbal dispute with a group of juveniles, he pulled out a firearm and wreaked havoc into the SEPTA bus. He unloads 9 rounds. As Mr. Krasner said, you can see these people ducking behind seats in fear for their life. As we know, 4 people were shot. However, there were about 10 in range of where he was shooting, and everyone on that bus that survived is traumatized by the violence that they witnessed and barely escaped. Mr. Bryan has been charged with 10 counts of attempted murder, 10 counts of aggravated assault, 10 counts of simple assault, 10 counts of recklessly endangering another person, 1 count of possession of an instrument of a crime, and several violations of the Uniform Firearms Act. Mr. Bryan is prohibited from possessing a firearm due to a 1993 conviction for robbery. Mr. Bryan is set to be arraigned this morning, and we have requested $1 million of bail on each transcript, totaling $10 million. Mr. Bryan is set to have his preliminary hearing on May 27th, 2025 at 9 a.m. in courtroom 5F at the Family Court Building located at 1501 Arch Street. A last thing that I would like to say is that, let me be clear, we will prosecute this case to the fullest extent of the law. This office will do everything in its power to seek justice for the victims, hold the defendant accountable, and make it clear that gun violence, especially gun violence that endangers innocent bystanders, will never be tolerated. The people of this city deserve to feel safe, and we will continue to work to make that possible. Thank you.
Would you like to say something, Ken?
Yes, please. Thank you for inviting me, D.A. Krasner. This case particularly is of interest to me and well-timed. We just announced the reappointment of the City Council Committee on Gun Violence, which made me late. This case is a bus route that runs through the 4th Council District, which is not a stranger to shootings. There was a couple of months ago some juveniles involved in shooting in that route. There, in the report we did on the Blueprint for a Safer Philadelphia, we made note that it's not just what crime was committed, it is where crimes are committed. The geography of a crime takes on different ways to apprehend and then prosecute people. When it's on SEPTA in particular, we have cross-jurisdiction with SEPTA Police, and I'm thankful that you're working as a team to apprehend and then prosecute, that there are consequences for this kind of melee. My relatives working a night shift have to get on these buses. If we are going to save SEPTA as a mass means of transportation for any big city, it has to be safe. And we are working in coalition with the District Attorney's Office to do that. So the geography of where it happened in the 4th on a bus just is more egregious than just what happened. And so we're thankful that you are right on top of it. We are thankful that crime is down, but it's moving in the right direction. But we're going to keep the pedal to the metal to make it faster. Thank you, District Attorney.
Thank you, council member. And thank you for all the work that you have been doing as long as I can remember. Certainly as long as I've been in office around gun violence, including the 100 shooter report, which together with now Council President Kenyatta Johnson was a year-plus long process of a whole lot of people working together, talking to each other, agreeing, disagreeing, and coming to some important conclusions. Thank you also for the blueprint, public safety, that you authored, which, if I recall correctly, came out on the eve of this administration starting its work. Thank you for all of that. And I do want to point out that the committee you're referring to, this committee to address gun violence prevention, now has a new member, and that member is Bill Fritzy, standing over there, who is the head of our gun violence task force and is extremely well suited to assisting in terms of all aspects of investigation and enforcement. Even though prevention is not his day job, it's certainly something that concerns him as well, and he will be a valuable source of input on that point too. All right, Mr. Tom Gardner, 3 CBS. Any questions, sir?
No, sir.
All right, thank you. Annie McCormick, 6 ABC. Any questions?
Yeah. I'm wondering in the initial report, and I'm going off of memory here, so correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. District Attorney, but I believe in the initial report for Council Member Jones's the gun safety report, your office had suggested that not everybody who has an unlicensed gun should necessarily be prosecuted because there was hurdles for them to be able to legally obtain a weapon. I'm wondering if that's something that you still believe. If I'm wrong, correct me, but that's what I remember from reading that extensive report that your office, Councilman Jones, had put out. I'm wondering if you still feel that way. And additionally, Councilmember Jones, what are the benchmarks that you're using to see if the gun task force is working?
So thank you for the question. We have never taken the position that you should not prosecute gun cases. That has never been
I didn't say that.
All right, well, again, I'm not saying you said that, but we have never taken the position that you shouldn't prosecute gun cases. We have recognized the reality that if you're trying to solve shootings, then we should focus above all else on shootings. If we're talking about gun cases, they should all be prosecuted, but within that large category, there are some people who are basically law-abiding. They do not have their paperwork in order. They are carrying that gun out of fear and for self-protection, and some of those people should be diverted. Diversion is a form of accountability and prosecution that, frankly, is often a lot more work than simply being convicted and sitting in a jail cell or sitting at home. That's the reality. Our diversion for guns, which is a very limited program, has made the public much safer than if those same people were prosecuted. And that's not what I think, that's what I know. Because the data shows that essentially the same group of people prosecuted are going to give you 4 new arrests later, as opposed to 1 new arrest when they've gone through this intensive accountability. So I know that you also had a question for the council members, so I'll step aside for that.
I just want to clarify real quick. I just want to make sure I understand you correctly and I heard you correctly. So you're saying that you are okay with the fact that somebody does not have a licensed gun if they're put into a diversion program that you created?
No, I'm not saying that.
Okay.
That's not what I said. What I said is there's a small subset of people arrested for possession of guns who are appropriate for diversion. That's actually been true for my entire career, and all of my predecessors did it. We just do it in a way that is much more robust. It involves a lot more actual rehabilitative work. It involves cohorts that have a social worker who works with them intensively for a period of months under the supervision of a judge. But that is what I'm saying. Council member?
Sure. So to answer your question, how do we measure it? Crime is down. How do we measure it? Fatal shootings are down. Shootings are also down. Problems, they're getting younger, and we have to address that. The other measurement on how we're doing is that we have a constant battle in the courts. We win some and we lose some. They are always, the NRA and other conservative members that deal with gun rights fight us every turn, but we win some. Ghost guns, we won. straw purchases, we are winning. We are moving the needle in the right direction in the wheelhouse that we have authority over. Sometimes the court supersedes us, but we will continue to fight to make sure that the people that are responsible for straw purchases are held accountable. We will continue to make sure that voluntarily, many gun manufacturers have said, we're going to stop making and distributing ghost guns. And that was at the threat of a court suit that we were going to file. So we win some, we lose some, but we will never, ever stop fighting the issue of reducing the fatalities and reducing the proliferation of legal and illegal guns, because they all need to be done responsibly.
Hey, Councilor, just one follow-up. You also have the large hurdle of social media. What we're hearing from detectives in SIG and homicide right now is a lot of antagonizing rap-type videos, that there's threats that are made through those videos. How is that something that you're talking about addressing in the task force?
Ding, ding, ding. That's the best question of the day. Drill music is a problem. And we have to not only, we have to work with our artists to do a more positive form of expression of what they see in their daily lives, but also the industry that is employing them, the record industry, does things like, I know Group A, and you're very familiar with this, is fighting Group B. And they're going back and forth through musical dialogue that results in violence. Like literally, there will be shooting a video the other day in Germantown, and they were doing it online, and their ops, their opponents, knew where they were and challenged them, shot them. And we have to hold the record industry accountable. We had to hold the radio stations accountable. I did not know until my kids told me that you can't roll the window down and bounce to that beat. I said, well, why? Because that's calling out the other group, and you're riding through their neighborhood. You don't know what they're saying, but they do. It is a dangerous, volatile situation that we need to pay attention to. So thank you for that question.
Brian Sheehan, Channel 10 NBC.
Can you describe the nature of the dispute prior to the shooting? And then second, if you could just give a brief statement in Spanish on the nature of the case and the charges. If you want to do it here, we can do that afterwards.
I will be happy to do that, Mr. Sheehan. Just hold on 1 second, please. Yeah. Yep, go from the microphone.
The nature of the dispute that led up to it was that they were all passengers on the bus. There was about 4 teenage boys, and they got into a conversation with the defendant, during which he had said some things that, they weren't really understanding. They kind of wanted to be left alone by him, is how I would describe it. Long story short, that one of the children flips his hat off of his head. This makes him very angry. He goes, sits in the front of the bus, and then he takes out a firearm and unloads it into the back of the bus where the children were sitting.
So did Mr. Bryan, did he start this, or did the team?
He initiated a conversation with the teens, and as a result of that conversation, it led into this.
But they just kind of wanted to be left alone, is what you saying?
That's our understanding at this time.
I think what we're seeing with juveniles a lot of times is that even with the social media, right, they've gotten used to the fact that they should antagonize and continue to antagonize people. I'm not saying that that is what caused this incident, but I am saying we have an issue with social media and other things that are causing this to go back and forth. One of the things that council member mentioned was about with social media was them going back and forth. Well, one of the things that we know within the task force is there's also monetization with social media, with YouTube. So, for instance, YBC Duel was making about $10,000 a month on monetization of his social media, YouTube, whatever else. Now that is helping these young kids, and what are they going to want to do? They're going to also want to make $10,000 a month, right? So one of the things that I'm hoping with this new committee is we can address that too, to try and find different ways for juveniles to make that money, but maybe have a positive, instead of drill music about violence, maybe drill music about something rather positive. Although it wouldn't be drill music at that point, I suppose. The other thing I want to point out is in this case, the defendant is an adult, right? He's an adult that is charged with 6105, right? 6105 is felon in possession of a firearm. That's very different than what we're talking about when we're talking about licensing. Licensing is two different statutes. We have two separate statutes in Philadelphia, one specific to Philadelphia that's a misdemeanor of the first degree and one that's a felony of the third degree. Only specifically in Philadelphia do you get that lower level licensing charge. Very different than felon in possession. A felon in possession can be taken federally and prosecuted federally. A licensing issue is local, right? It can only be prosecuted by a state prosecutor. When we look at diversion, and we're talking about diversion, we are looking at not the 6105 individual. That's a person that shouldn't have had a gun to begin with. We're looking more at those 6106 charges, the 6108 charges. And in particular, sometimes when you're in the counties, you're not actually charged with a 6106 felony charge, you're charged with a misdemeanor charge. So we are already charging higher charges here in Philadelphia many times on these cases. When you look at diversion, you're looking at those individuals who brought a gun to the airport and put it in their bag. Unbelievably enough, that happens all the time. We encounter in courtroom 503, which is our gun courtroom, we encounter people with expired licenses. We encounter people who had their license revoked by accident, people who have licenses in other states but didn't get a license here in Philadelphia or in Pennsylvania. So those are the types of cases that are looked at for diversion. Those cases are sent over to our intelligence unit, and they do a workup on each defendant before that defendant could possibly even enter into any type of diversion program. On top of that, because the task force is involved in this office, we also, on top of the intelligence unit, take another look because we have other intelligence that we look at to determine whether that person should be allowed to be entered into diversion. So when DA Krasner talks about all the steps they have to do once they're in diversion, there's a lot of steps our office and our different various units do before we get into diversion, before that person can be even entered into diversion. But again, that's separate from your felony level felon in possession, which is what this defendant was. He could be prosecuted by the federal authorities in this case on that gun charge. But that is very different than when we talk about licensing issues and the charges from that.
Thank you. Thank you, Bill. Also, just to build on what Bill was saying, the legislature in its wisdom decided to do a study of which counties have the shortest and the longest sentences for 6105. 6105 being felon in possession of a weapon. It is a charge that we do not divert, period. And they found that the county that gives the longest sentences, the longest one for 6105 is Philadelphia County. That's what they found. Wow, facts. Aren't facts wonderful? There is a difference between the wheat and the chaff. The chaff are 6105. The chaff are affiliated with shooting groups. The chaff are up to stuff that is suspicious and suggests criminal activity. And then there are the wheat. That is the person who works all night at a gas station, who is afraid, who should have gotten their paperwork together but didn't, or did get it together, and then it was expired. And then because that person works two jobs, they didn't renew it in time. Should they be charged? Yes. Should they be prosecuted? Yes. Should they be diverted? In many cases, the answer there is yes. They are the wheat, not the chaff. To us, individual justice is extremely important, and it's also the key to public safety. This man is in all likelihood going to have a very, very, very lengthy sentence, and he's not young, okay? It's what he should have. But that is not the same thing as a hardworking person with no criminal record who's working at that gas station, 25 years of age, bright future, and the whole thing shouldn't be smashed on the ground for politics. All right, Channel 29, Fox, that would be Tina Hogate. Thank you. Let me see. Philadelphia Inquirer, Rodrigo Torrejon.
Okay, just a few questions about the case. When was Bryant actually arrested, and was the weapon recovered? What kind of gun was it? And I have some other questions on that case.
I will allow others in my office to answer that first.
He was arrested last night, and there was not a firearm recovered.
And then I also wanted to see if you had any updates on the shooting at Hope in Cambria Street. one fatality, I believe, but at least 2 other people were also shot. So I think pickup truck or something will probably do that. Yeah. And then, so my final question, as we speak, there's a hearing regarding Act 40 that essentially strips you of jurisdiction of shootings on SEPTA property. I know the special prosecutor that was, I guess, appointed has previously said that they would likely be approaching cases like this, non-fatal shootings, shootings specifically on property, including buses. So I was wondering if you could comment on the decision-making to have your office prosecute this, and also just your general thoughts on the hearing that's going on right now when it comes to cases like this.
Well, maybe what I can do is offer just a little bit of context. The law does not actually say that we don't have jurisdiction over these cases. We do have jurisdiction over all of these cases. What the law says, and it is unique to Philadelphia, is that the special prosecutor can cherry pick those cases and can, without our permission, take what the special prosecutor wants to take. That's what the law says. The hearing you're referring to, unless I'm mistaken, is an argument before the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. And the fundamental point of that argument is that it has, in a discriminatory way, devalued the votes of Philadelphians, because there is no other county in the entire state where the special prosecutor, who can operate in multiple counties, is given the decision. The decision is actually left with the person selected by the voters in Montgomery County, in Bucks County, in Delaware County. Shall I go on? Okay? The fundamental issue there, in my mind, is about democracy. It's about whether, for some reason, in the most diverse city in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, their vote counts for less. It's whether in the most democratic city, for some reason, their vote counts for less. It is whether in the largest city, the economic engine of this state, for some reason, thanks to our Republican friends in faraway places, it counts for less. Let's just say, at a moment when we are trying to protect democracy, it says a lot about those particular legislators. But, you know, we are going to do what we've always done. We are going to continue to effectively, capably, and seriously work with our law enforcement partners to prosecute. I don't know what the special prosecutor is going to do. He did a lengthy interview with Lauren Make in which he basically said what you said, which is that he was only going to do, you know, very low-level stuff, turnstile jumping, having a beer on SEPTA, that kind of stuff. So, I mean, frankly, I don't know. I do know this. If a special prosecutor takes these cases, and then it turns out that he has no lawful jurisdiction after a conviction or after a trial, that means that that case is destroyed forever. And it means there is no way for us to go back and re-prosecute it. So we will see what the Pennsylvania Supreme Court has to say about whether somehow Philadelphia's elected officials can selectively be stripped of their powers while every other county's elected officials are not. All right. Any other? Oh, Spanish? I owe you some Spanish.